That's what Singpost does. Pioneering and leading e-commerce logistics. Empowering buyers and sellers from the very first touch. We help businesses venture into the global e-commerce market, offer end-to-end solutions to help companies grow, and effectively support their need for trusted e-commerce logistics. We celebrate innovation and keep pushing the boundaries of technology and possibility. Automation, precision, management. We've integrated our business to enable the businesses of others. Increasing productivity, improving quality for our customers and their customers. That's why we invest in the future, because we'll be spending a long time there. It's our job to make the complex look simple, harness our strengths of freight, postal and parcel delivery, transform businesses as the backbone of Asia-Pacific's e-commerce ecosystem. We've been 150 years in the making. Wherever we are, we still make good on our word, delivering the promise of the first touch. For them, for us, for you.
Let's welcome Mr. Alex Tam, Group Chief Information Officer and Group Chief Digital Officer of Singapore Post, to discuss last mile and urban logistics platforms.
Hey, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Singapore. So I represent Singpost. Let me give you a quick overview of my presentation very shortly. As you can see, the topic this morning is going to be on the urban last mile logistics platform. This platform is going to be quite revolutionary, fairly innovative. We try to put everything into one single box. And I think why it's important is because when you do business, you want to focus on the core business that you're running, rather than to interface with multiple so-called last mile logistics providers. So as a start, before we even came up with this proposition, we actually looked at a couple of things. The first thing we looked at is what is the opportunity in Southeast Asia. As you can see from this slide, this is a study conducted by Google and Temasek 3 years ago. So we are in the first trimester of this 10-year cycle. We are talking about a $200 billion Southeast Asia internet opportunity. There are three components in there. For instance, we are looking at also the first-hand e-commerce market spaces where B2C flourishes. We are looking at also online media as well as travel. So these are the three components we are looking at. So it's a huge opportunity. A lot of VCs are in this part of the region. As you noticed earlier from one of my co-presenters, I think it was mentioned, for example, there are 83 unicorns in Southeast Asia already. So that's a pretty good start. The second slide basically is that we look at the market specifically for e-commerce, primarily we call it the first-hand rather than the second-hand or used segment. So if you look at the first piece here, we are seeing a huge uptake. We are looking at potential $88 billion market size by 2025. Now, but what's important is actually the underlying growth. We are looking at a 32% compounded annual growth rate. Now, this is basically just Southeast Asia. If you look at the 7 countries under Southeast Asia, Indonesia is a standout. What basically this means is that by 2025, out of the $88 billion, Indonesia alone is about $46 billion. So if you want to win big in Southeast Asia, Indonesia is a huge opportunity. It represents 40% of the of the ASEAN population, and the growth rate is phenomenal. So by looking at the market sizes, we also ask ourselves these questions: where do we play? Where does Singpost play? How do we reinvent ourselves? How do we position ourselves to capture this opportunity? So we can do it as follows. We look at the study and we look at the area which we call logistics infrastructure. If you look at the logistics infrastructure, There are 4 components embedded in there. I think the last mile piece is actually a huge opportunity for us. And the rationale is very simple. The margins are good. If you look at the margins of a logistics business, 28% of the entire cost of the supply chain is actually sitting in this last mile piece. Very often, we find that a lot of B2C companies, they make a lot of money up front, but the fulfillment piece is where I think the supply chain cost eats into their margin. So we believe with a proper analysis, positioning, we have a unique value that we can offer to the market. So Singapore's, very quickly, just one slide, we have reinvented ourselves by saying that, look, where are the opportunities in Southeast Asia? We are no longer just looking at Singapore. I think the narrative is regional. However, the key focus point is that we're looking at Southeast Asian market. So let me go straight into point number 2. How do we ignite the future growth engines? We believe that among other things, we are looking at the last mile as a sweet spot for us. The rationale is simple. It's driven by a growing Southeast Asia region, rapidly mobile, fairly young population. In fact, 70% of the population are below 40 years old. If you look at Indonesia, for example, I always take Indonesia as an example because it's a huge population. If you look at Indonesia as an example, 3/4 of the population are below 30 years old. It's a huge consumerization waiting to happen. In essence, our digital and tech strategy covers 3 areas. We are looking at the disruptive last mile platform, which I'll share with you very shortly. We are also looking at the front end. We have this product called Edge, which is our front end order management system. And also, last but not least, we believe the beachhead in our future is actually in tech. In digital is tech, tech is digital, for example, in business. So this digital space, we are looking at a couple of areas. We are working very closely with the Alibaba family in the areas like fintech. As we speak, we are actually going to embrace Alipay across all our post offices by end of this year. So what this means is that if you're a Chinese consumer, whether you're staying in Singapore or you're a tourist coming to Singapore, passing through our post offices, you can actually transact in a very seamless manner as a typical Chinese consumer. If you look at the journey, right, you can actually leave home without even carrying cash. So we want to bring this mindset into the Singapore arena, and I think we'll start by enabling all our post offices with Alipay technology. So that should be done in the next couple of months. Singpost has been known for innovation in the past. I'm sure some of you must have read, we have actually launched a drone project with NUS, also with Airbus, and also civil aviation. That project was actually completed. We actually carried a parcel across from one location in NUS to another different location. And I think more trials will be conducted. Now that's the drone piece that we look at the top right-hand quadrant. On the extreme left, you notice that smart posts, we're introducing smart posts. We recognize in Singapore, there are more consumers who want to interact with the post offices on a daily basis rather than just during office hours. So the concept of smart posts will be actually the e-channel for this specific target segment. And we are opening one smart post at the Sun Plaza. So if you look through, we are also looking at pop stations and parcel lockers. As you are aware, we are looking at a generation whereby we believe collection will be a very important component versus just a parcel that is waiting to be delivered. So it's rather than just delivery, it's also collection. I'll talk about that later. And last but not least, we are piloting 2 very interesting technologies at the bottom, as you can see, anti-counterfeiting technology. So imagine you buy a piece of tag, whether it's from Europe or from China. I think it's very important to ensure that the bag is authentic. It reaches the buyer, you open it up and say, gee, this is a real bag that I ordered, and it's not like for some reason it's being swapped and all that. So we are piloting a technology with European vendor as we speak, and also we are building this thing called the geocoding. As you will see, the last mile, it's about cross-border trade. So we will share with you later on, as I go along the presentation, how we're going to embed some special geocoding technology with AI. We're talking about neural networks here, that has got the ability to give you a parcel delivery up to the nearest 15 minutes. That means if you choose to elect to have a parcel delivered to you, the courier will let you know that, Mr. A, your parcel will arrive in the next 15 minutes. You will do geofencing and all the technology stuff. And of course, the purpose of today's session is to introduce to you our last mile product called LAM. LAN, basically, it's a very audacious plan that we have, whereby we say, hey, if you want to play in the Southeast Asian market, what are your options? We want to disrupt practically all last mile providers, if I may, couriers. We even want to give power back to the consumer by offering a solid value proposition. Because when you order something, you want to have the choice to say, I can pick it up anywhere I like, in any location, with specific cost points. If you want same-day delivery, these are the options available. If you want instant delivery, these are the options available. So this system is like urban logistics in a box. Now, on a macro business perspective, this is very important. If you look at, for example, Alibaba, November 11 sales last year, we understand during the peak, one single day, it was 130 million parcels delivered in one day. Yet, the price of the couriers have actually gone up. Right? Because the more you deliver, obviously the courier companies, like the ZPOs and all that. Now going forward, how do you bring, let's say, a sale at 131 million to 10x? It's not going to be possible using couriers. How many people can you deploy in one day? So you step back for a moment and say, how do we solve this smart city problem? How do we solve the logistics problem? If you look at what LAN does for you, it already has got the underpinnings of that. Why? Because we're talking about building a dense collection network. So if you look at what we are building today under this LAN product, what you see in green is really Singpost assets that we have already on the ground. These are Singapore-based assets. It could be post offices, it could be pop stations. As we speak, we have about 166 pop stations in Singapore, and we're adding 100. But when we get outside Singapore, it's going to be asset-light. The green zones do not matter anymore. Okay, so think of it this way. We have a plan that we live and shift this model out of Singapore. We will work with all parcel lockers within Southeast Asia. We will work with retail malls. We will work with dense collection points. We will also work with unmanned stores. In fact, we're doing some trials with a local company as we speak. So to the consumer, right, if you look at the consumer on the extreme left, if you buy something from a B2C, for example, Lazada or Tokopedia, you have a choice. You have a choice as follows. You could basically say, I want to collect this item. Why? Because I'm passing by this location. I'm taking this train, I'm going to be at this location, the parcel will be there for the next 24 hours. It is the cheapest point. I give you an example. If you take a parcel locker, it could be as low as $2. But if you have a delivery person coming to you and made it at a cost, it's easily $3.50, $4. So the whole cycle basically is that you bring the transaction cost down. So I think the value proposition here is that we offer the consumer the choice to differentiate. And why is it important? Because the B2C marketplace that embed all these options will probably be able to differentiate and offer a very unique customer differentiation experience. Because you can then offer your consumer a complete array of options, from the cheapest point to the same-day delivery point or express. And of course, right on top of the layer, you notice that we have a lot of innovation stuff that we're working with startups, that we can even put collection points with your nearest, let's say if you live in Singapore, we have this HDB blocks, right? Every single HDB block could be a home of a retired postman, for example. So you offer the community an option to say, look, rather than just pick it up from a parcel locker, you can actually pick it up from a so-called reliable postman, ex-postman, for example. So I think this slide is quite interesting because it tells you a couple of things, why we do cloud computing. I think it's very important that we focus on our core business. We have a business footprint that covers the United States of America, Australia, Singapore, and the region. Cloud frees us from the mundane day-to-day job. We have a team in place, but I think the main focus that we want to leverage, for example, Alibaba Computing, to be able to give us the on-the-fly expertise as we speak. Secondly, the pricing is very flexible. Pay as you use is becoming a norm. There's no upfront cost, there's no termination fee, isn't that great? And also, I think it's very important that we look at Alibaba November 11 experience. As you can see, every year we watch with a bated breath, records being broken. Every year it's like 25 million. I used to work for a company, a German company. I was at this particular, one of the top 10 retailer in China during November 11. It was freezing in the warehouse. And we look at the numbers, the number of shirts being sold, it just blows your mind, right? It's like unbelievable. One weekend it was $25 million US, just one simple weekend. And we believe that why we look at peak season sales, because that's the best use case. For us, if our ambition is to get into the regional last mile space, which we will, we want a cloud platform that's proven, that has actually been pushing the envelope for the last couple of years, rather than we just look at the technology play. So we're looking at an ecosystem approach. And I think that's very important, because then we're looking at technology, working with AI, with data, with payments, and all the complexity. It is all interoperable. So to us, I think it's important that we work with someone which is basically been there, done it, constantly pushing the envelope. Okay, so with that, I end my presentation. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Tan. The next session, Empowering Technology Innovation for Digital Asia Pacific, is a panel discussion. The session will be facilitated by Mr. Dane Anderson, Vice President and Research Director of